The nightmare that every mother fears, I'm living right now.
A teenager who tried to say no.
He kept reaching over to grab between her thighs.
Stabbed more than a dozen times.
You can tell that she was trying to fight off. They're on her hands.
More than a month later, she remains hospitalized, and tonight, her family's asking for your help as they share a powerful message for women to always stand your ground.
Plus, a distraction at a place that's meant for healing.
Several headstones that are sunk into the ground where they've overwatered.
A cemetery in rough shape. And this woman says after getting the runaround, she's reaching out to contact Denver7 for help.
And their life belongings gone.
Birth certificates, all our important papers, everything.
Tonight, a community is coming together to help.
That is still good people out here.
An Aurora teenager is repeatedly stabbed, left for dead, and now doctors say she may never walk again.
The teen's mother is sharing more about the trauma her daughter endured after the teen stood up to a man trying to sexually assault her. Denver7's Addie Guajardo has the story.
She's very athletic. She's played softball since she was 4 years old.
Jada McDaniels, a strong, independent 17-year-old with a soft spot for animals.
She wants to be a veterinarian.
A dream now drowning in a sea of pain.
I felt like my world had just completely crashed. My heart shattered. My baby was laying there with tubes in her.
On September 10th, Jennifer Holland says her daughter met up with a man she met on Facebook a couple months earlier. The two met at Sunburst Park in Aurora, and Jada got into the man's car.
They decided to hang out and listen to some music.
But the mood took a turn.
He kept reaching over to grab her thighs.
And it escalated.
She said, no. No is no. And she said, I gotta go. He started stabbing my daughter.
Jada tried to escape.
He had gotten out and came after her, and he stabbed her repeatedly until she was non-responsive and not moving.
She was found by a stranger in a pool of blood.
He thought she was dead, and my daughter thought she was dead too.
Aurora police couldn't release much information, but they confirmed they responded to the scene around 10:45 p.m. The initial call was for a hit and run. A source tells Denver7 a further investigation revealed it was a stabbing.
She's right up there.
Jada has been hospitalized since the vicious attack.
She's not speaking because she's got a trach in her throat. She's got a tube that is in her belly that feeds her.
APD confirmed they arrested a suspect.
He needs to be locked away for the rest of his life.
Her mom says it's a small price to pay for destroying her daughter's life.
He almost killed my baby for sex.
Jada suffered stab wounds to the neck and back. Her mother says she's paralyzed from the waist down, but she's hoping to create a movement bigger than life.
She wants her story out there. She wants girls to know that no is no, regardless of the circumstances.
Jennifer says she's been forced to quit her 2 jobs to care for her daughter.
The account is getting drained and the bills are still coming and it's overwhelming. Hey, baby.
Not to mention medical bills for a minimum of 90 days at the hospital. And now that Jada's mom says she'll be confined to a wheelchair, this family needs help buying a wheelchair-accessible van and an apartment to accommodate Jada's disabilities.
Help financially and help, just prayers. Pray for my baby, pray for justice.
Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
So we have set up an easy way for you to donate if you'd like. Head over to thedenverchannel.com, click Denver7 Gives, and under the drop-down menu, click Help Jada and Family. A stark warning today from Colorado health leaders. We will likely exceed April's peak of hospitalizations in the next 2 weeks. And by January, we could exceed our ICU capacity if the current trends continue. The state released its latest COVID-19 model today, and the state's peak hospitalization was April 9th, when nearly 1,300 patients were hospitalized with either COVID or a suspected case. Well, tonight, more than 780 people are hospitalized. Around 300 people were hospitalized at the start of October. The state says right now 80% of ICU beds are in use across our state. And late today, Douglas County announced they are moving into the Safer at Home Level 2 next week. Level 2 still allows restaurants to operate at 50% capacity. And in Jeffco, spectators at youth and adult sports games are no longer allowed. That's effective as of tonight. And like Denver, the county's also moving last call back to 10 p.m. The county's incidence rate is around 300 cases per 100,000 people. Again, that number should be no more than 175 cases per 100,000 people.
And I know Halloween is finally on a Saturday, but we need to accept it's going to be different this year. And Denver Department of Public Health warns they'll have crews out patrolling the city this weekend. They want to make sure people are following the new Level 3 COVID restrictions. Fines for non-compliance, nearly $1,000. So don't throw the big parties. Statewide, in fact, gatherings are limited to 10 people from no more than 2 households. And if you're handing out candy, health leaders encourage you, make goodie bags. Maybe leave them on a table outside or in the driveway so kids can grab them and keep a safe distance. Or make a candy launcher like this one.
And so we'll be launching these, you know, not very far, obviously, but from our garage to the sidewalk, so that we can deliver candy to kids without them having to actually walk up.
That's so good. Also, hand sanitizer and masks are your best friends this weekend. And this is a good sign. The Stanley Hotel announced today they're going to be open for the Halloween weekend. Of course, we know the hotel was closed as people in Estes Park evacuated last week because of the wildfires. The owner tells Denver7 tonight they're ready to welcome guests just in time for the spooky Halloween.
And speaking of those wildfires, in the last few hours, we got an update from crews at the East Troublesome Fire in Grand County. More people are being allowed back into their neighborhoods. And we're happy to report today was another day with no active fire growth. And with that said, this fire has consumed at least 250 structures. That's on top of the 400 structures destroyed in the Cameron Peak fire. And we know at least half of those were cabins or homes. And some good news tonight. We learned that fire crews don't believe the East Troublesome Fire and the Cameron Peak fire will connect. We also want to remind you that the National Forest Service lands that were closed last week in 5 counties, those areas will remain closed at least through the weekend. The closure applies to Forest Service land in Jeffco, Clear Creek, Gilpin, Boulder, and Larimer counties. And Rocky Mountain National Park also remains closed. Almost 29,000 acres have burned inside the park. That's the most acreage burned since the park was established more than a century ago.
Concerns and frustrations tonight from families who have loved ones buried at a local cemetery. They say it's fallen into disrepair.
And they're now reaching out to contact Denver7. And Denver7's Jason Grenauer went to get answers.
I feel like a cemetery should be a place to go where you can have some healing and some quiet time.
But for Mary Kellner,
it's hard for me to come out when it's like this.
Her parents' final resting place is not that at all.
I see a mess. I see sad.
Walking through the Olinger Evergreen Cemetery in Broomfield.
Makes me want to cry.
Not over loss, but over condition.
I would say a little bit of grass and probably 80% weeds and mud. Several headstones that are sunk into the ground where they've overwatered and the areas that they do water. There's some that they've driven their equipment across and have actually cracked the headstones.
Where they drove across, and that's why the plate's bent.
Mary's mom passed away this spring.
And it's just open mud since we buried her in April.
If not for a promise made to her, Mary says she would have never placed her in a place that looks like this.
It should mean something to them as much as it does to the families of the loved ones out here. And it just doesn't.
Though it has the Olinger name, the property is owned by a national company, Stonemore Inc. We sent them Mary's photos of the conditions here and received a statement saying a new landscaping company had just taken over, adding they are working through a plan currently to rectify the situation. This will include the weeds, grass, and attention to any of the sunken graves.
This is a very active, still in use cemetery, and it should not be like this.
Mary and other families with loved ones here now hope this place can be returned to the peace and healing it deserves.
I would love to see somebody care about this cemetery as much as it should be cared for.
In Broomfield, I'm Jason Grenauer, Denver7.
Aurora police are searching for this man they say is a person of interest in an apartment fire that left one person dead overnight. The fire happened on Galena Street off East Colfax. Residents say as smoke and flames started to consume the building, some residents grabbed ladders to help people on the 2nd and 3rd floors get out. Others had to jump out of windows. Aurora Fire says one person died, another is in critical condition, and 5 others were taken to the hospital.
As soon as we got out, we just started yelling, screaming at people to get out. We were breaking the windows.
Investigators aren't yet calling this arson, but nothing's being ruled out. In total, 60 people have been displaced, and the Red Cross is helping them with temporary housing.
If you still need to cast your ballot and you prefer to vote in person, the Ball Arena, that is formerly the Pepsi Center, is now officially open as a polling location. You can also drop off your completed ballot there if you'd like. That's going to remain open through Election Day. Quick reminder for those who plan to still vote in person, you cannot wear anything in the polling place that supports a candidate or a ballot measure. You also cannot campaign for a candidate within 100 feet of a polling place. And we've got you covered on election night. We hope you tune to us. We'll have 5 hours of election coverage and results. Our coverage starts at 5 p.m. on Denver7, and we'll check in, of course, with ABC News as the polls close on the East Coast. You can then catch our uninterrupted local coverage on our streaming apps starting at 6 p.m. We'll have constant updates as results come into the newsroom. Just search Denver7 in your streaming device of choice, Roku, Amazon Fire, or Apple TV.
Come out the hotel room this morning and the truck's gone with everything we own.
Their entire life packed up into one car, and that car is now gone. Everything inside missing. Well, tonight, the community is coming together to help.
$500, it's not a lot, but it's a help. It'll help them get back on their feet.
The coronavirus hits the Broncos organization. What's ahead for the team just days before they're set to play the Chargers?
It was gorgeous today. Coming up when we get back to the low to mid 70s.